We're currently learning about D&D lore here on the channel, and I saw this video which piqued my interest. There are some pretty insane powers from what I know of the magic system in D&D, so I'm very curious what the strongest monster would be. Like, how insane are we gonna get here?
This video is sponsored by Dragonhide Gaming Gear. Now that we're talking about the strongest monsters in Dungeons & Dragons, who most happen to be dragons, what better way to use their hide after you slay them than to make dice bags, keychains, and dice trays. Each item is made from embossed leather and is hand-painted to create natural variation found in real scales, and the eyes in the keychains are made from real glass. They got colors for each of the chromatic and metallic dragons for each of the pieces. Please follow the link in the description and check out the Kickstarter for Dragonhide Gaming Gear. I personally love my bronze Dragonhide dice bag. It feels great and it looks awesome. Once again, check out the link in the description to go to Dragonhide Gaming Gear on Kickstarter. Today is the day where we will talk about the strongest monsters by challenge rating in Dungeons & Dragons. We've already covered a plethora of creatures far stronger than the strongest monster in the monster manual.
Wait, this one is a strongest named monster, right? And I'm gonna assume that challenge rating, like you can see here, it's pretty small. Like, I think my head's blocking it. Challenge 30, 155,000 XP. I guess all of these monsters are like spread out through a campaign and like placed specifically at a place where like your players could run into them and be on level in order to defeat them, and then you be able to calculate how much XP they'd get from it, serving as like a guide to help you set up your campaign. Yeah. So the challenge level itself would likely be a collection of all of its powers, and through whatever system they say, oh, it's this number, just as an easy way to help order them, I guess.
Terrifying Tarrasque, who possesses a challenge rating of 30. In the list, we've had heroes and villains blessed with supernatural might by gods. We've had ancient dragons with an unbelievable array of spells at their disposal, and
I still need to do a video on the dragons as well. I know you guys have been asking for that as well.
That's kinda it. When it comes to monsters stronger than the Tarrasque, we're basically talking about champions blessed by gods or extraordinarily powerful dragons. Last episode we talked about Inferno and Chazar both being CR 40, and today we're going to cover the last CR 40 creature and then the strongest monster in Faerun by challenge rating. But without further ado, let's begin. Moskill Jesred is the last of the CR 40 dragons, contending with Inferno and with Chazar, though unfortunately we actually do not possess a character sheet for this one. His challenge rating comes from the book Dragons of Faerun, where we have this neat collection of pages literally just detailing the CR of all of the important dragons of the continent. In the page we are told that Moskill Jesred is CR 40, but that's basically kind of it. Since we do not have a sheet specifically detailing his attacks and abilities, let's go ahead and break down the character. Who is this dragon? Moskill is a drow shadow dragon, but what is a drow shadow dragon? See, a long time ago there was a drow city underground in the Underdark who was essentially forcefully governed by shadow dragons, who held the drow in the city as slaves. Sometimes the shadow dragons and the drow would mate, the result being half dragons, half shadow dragons, half drow. We call
How does that work? Or maybe the dragons can transform into a human form, otherwise I guess there's a reason why it's called Bad Dragon.
These the Sekiel. The stories say that the Sekiel, the half shadow dragons, half drow, sought out power that would separate their two halves. Essentially, instead of always being half and half, they would sought to be able to transform into either a full shadow dragon or a full drow, and they actually succeeded in seeking this power. Using this powerful magic, the birth of drow shadow dragons began. Now, there's nothing too special about a drow shadow dragon other than the fact that the creature can transform into either its dragon form or its drow form indefinitely, and gets the appropriate bonuses from each of the races. Now, all of these drow dragons that spawned from this story all were from the same clan, Clan Jesret from the city of Cholson. From this clan of now drow dragons, a new secret organization was born, an organization of assassins called Jesret Cholson, who Moskil Jesret is the leader of. It's a little convoluted, I know, but all you need to know is that the powerful CR40 dragon Moskil is the main leader of a nasty, secretive organization of assassins whose only goal is to depose Lolth as the de facto leader of the drow. He gathered all of his fellow drow dragons and a bunch of Sakiel, half shadow dragon, half drow, and started this assassin guild so that he could lead the drow instead of Lolth. Since then, he's been infiltrating drow cities little by little with his guild, and assassinating priestesses of Lolth and fomenting as much chaos as possible. Quote, members of the Jesret Cholson believe that to save the Dark Elves from the madness and tyranny of Lolth, drow society must be shattered. If cities fall and thousands of drow die to do so, then that fate must be born, since misery and disaster will turn the drow away from Lolth and towards other deities. The assassins are willing to risk subjecting the drow to centuries of weakness, enslavement, and suffering to remove Lolth's hold over the race and raise up the Jesret Cholson as the secret head of a drow society shaped to its liking. And
obviously.
Quote, they seek to murder all priestesses of Lolth and create as much chaos and destruction as possible in order to rebuild from the ashes. The clan is believed to have over 800 members, out of which 775 are Sekiels, which are half shadow dragons and half drow, and it also possesses over 8 fully grown ancient drow dragons, the ones who were originally spawned at the beginning of the guild, and then on top of that, another 17 weaker drow dragons, though 17 were second generation drow dragons and onward. It is believed that the original 8 drow dragons are the strongest, and they are the ones who actually lead this entire ensemble. Now, Moskil is believed to have been originally a black shadow dragon, based on the fact that his daughter actually appears in Princess of the Apocalypse in 5th edition. His daughter is Nurvarim, who is described specifically as being originally a black dragon, which means it is most likely that her father was a black dragon as well before he turned into a shadow dragon. Now, being a shadow dragon, Moskil would get incredible bonuses from being in dim light or in darkness, from resistances to all the elements and physical damage to being able to basically disappear and hide in the darkness as a bonus action. He also has...
I wonder how a battle against such a being would even go. Would there be some sort of spell to counteract that? I mean, I suppose there would be. Or maybe these like super high challenge rating monsters, like at challenge rating 30 and 40, they're kind of supposed to be there as like background lore, or maybe like a scrape by encounter where you just manage to barely escape somehow, rather than, you know, going head to head with it.
5 levels in Assassin, which means he would be able to do things from instantly killing his targets with a single strike to being able to guarantee critical hits when he surprises his mark. On top of all of this, he possesses 13 levels in Sorcerer. All of this combined appear to add up to him being CR40, though unfortunately, like I said before, since we do not have his stat sheet, we can't really know for sure how his power adds up, especially since we do not have access to his combat gear and magical items. All I know is that an ancient black shadow dragon that can basically turn invisible in the darkness and has assassin levels sounds broken as hell, combined with the fact that he basically resists all forms of damage except Radiant Force or Psychic. Now, the time is here for the strongest monster by challenge rating, but before I bring him on, I do want to mention a couple of things. Just because I am about to mention the strongest monster by challenge rating doesn't mean that he's actually the strongest monster on the planet. Not all monsters and characters in Dungeons & Dragons have a challenge rating, and not all challenge ratings can be fully explained, since we do have many monsters who were given challenge ratings but no explicit character sheet. There are also unexplained discrepancies in the challenge rating system, like for example Tiamat, who according to the Rise of Tiamat has a CR of 30, yet She, being the queen of all chromatic dragons, is weaker than many other powerful dragons. Now, of course, there could be many explanations as to why this might be the case. Whether the Tiamat in Rise of Tiamat was simply an avatar and not her real form, or whether the true power of Tiamat lies in her ability to command and manipulate dragons and not her actual physical might. In any case, a CR of 30.
Well, I feel like the challenge rating is just a reference number. In that case, there isn't like any actual calculation that goes behind it, but like it's ordered in such a way for you to get a good idea of where it should be in your campaign.
34 Tiamat actually feels about right when you compare her with the Devil Princess and Demon Lords and Celestial Paragons. It just doesn't help that we don't really know what a traditional god like Lathander or Mystra would have as a challenge rating for comparisons. All we really know is that it has been told to us through the lore that a CR 60 monster actually has the capabilities of very easily dispatching gods, but that's really all we know. Now, that being said, I have presented to you guys here the strongest monsters by challenge rating in Dungeons & Dragons, but only monsters that are specific to the Forgotten Realms, the world setting for 5th edition.
Yeah, there's
other worlds,
tons
of course, have their
realms.
own monsters and probably would have even stronger ones than these, and it is impossible for me to cover all of them, as you can imagine. What I can do, however, is cover a few of those on a next video. Monsters that are not specific to the Forgotten Realms, but are part of Dungeons & Dragons, and even though they have not been confirmed to be in the world, they do exist within D&D and have a challenge rating assigned for them and even stat blocks. I know that some of you were talking about the Force Dragons and the Prismatic Dragons, and yes, those would be included in those. I do want to cover them for you, and I will on the next episode, but for now though, let's just go back and talk about the strongest monster in the Forgotten Realms. Daurgothoth, the Creeping Doom. CR 50 Black Draco Lich.
50?
Just like Moskill Jesred, we unfortunately do not have a full stat sheet for the Creeping Doom. What we do have, however, are his powers and many of his abilities. So even though we do not know his specific stats, we can actually see exactly what he does and why he is so powerful. To start, Daurgothoth is an erudite in magical learning and study to the point where he actually has the protection and approval of Mystra, the goddess of magic. See, Mystra safeguards and dominates over magic, but not even she knows or fully understands the extent of what magic can and cannot do. As a force, magic can be quite difficult to control and unpredictable at times, and the extent of its power is still yet to be understood. This actually applies to the goddess herself. Even though she rules over it, she still studies magic and attempts to find new secrets whenever she can. This is why the imperative that she gives to those who follow her is to study magic whenever possible.
I suppose that makes sense. Like, magic in and of itself is just an incomprehensible thing with limitless possibilities. So, well, but like even the level of a god not being able to understand the extent of it is, yeah. I can somewhat see it, and also I'm somewhat baffled that she doesn't know everything, but yeah.
To invent new spells, to seek new secrets, and to uncover hidden traits of magic. This is something that Daurgothoth, the Creeping Doom, has done admirably. Remember well that Mystra is not a good deity, neither is she evil. She is neutral, and she allows good people access to magic as well as bad people. And in this case, she has essentially forbidden her followers from antagonizing the Draco Lich. This would include many of the previous high CR heroes that we mentioned, like Laeral Silverhand, Kelvin Aranson, and Elminster, who might actually be the only heroes in the world who actually know of the Draco Lich and of his lair. One of the massive advantages that the Creeping Doom possesses is that nobody actually knows of his lair. Only Mystra and a handful of her followers who keep the location secret. For those of you who are curious, his lair lies in the ancient gnomish city of Dol Blund, an abandoned ruin in the upper reaches of the Underdark, very close to Waterdeep. In fact, it is so close you can actually access it via Undermountain. You can also access it via a hidden path in a muddy bottom of the Deserim River, a water-filled semi-solid path hidden in the river. Now,
I see. Okay. Yeah, definitely this is the kind of thing where you take a shortcut, you go through an underground passageway, and then you see something in the distance. And you know it's bad news bears. So you roll to sneak. Hopefully survive. Yeah. I feel like that's the kind of scenario you'd set up if you ever brought this guy into your D&D campaign. But like the fact that he's so close to Waterdeep though just makes me feel like he should appear at some point.
Most of his study in magic focuses on a very interesting topic, on the ability to obtain and use magic and traits that are specific to all the different kinds of chromatic dragons. In essence, Daurgothoth is seeking to gain the breath weapon of all of the different chromatic dragons, something that he has actually partially managed to succeed at. He can breathe his original acid, he can produce a bolt akin to that of a blue dragon, he can breathe fire like a red dragon, and he can produce a blast of frost like a white dragon. On top of all of that, his experimentation has produced new effects, like his ability to use as a breath weapon the ability to create undead in a cone, as in the spell Create Undead, but from his mouth like a breath weapon, and the ability to banish and hurt undead as well as a breath weapon. He has also produced and invented a powerful bone spray that he can project from his mouth. This is all very impressive since an ancient dragon's breath weapon is some of the most powerful elemental magic that exists in the world. Certainly more powerful than any elemental attack that a level 9 spell can produce. And Daurgothoth has learned the ability to use multiples. It of course wouldn't end there. If he were to manage to fully integrate in himself through harsh magical experimentation, all the abilities, traits, and attributes of all the chromatic dragons, he may even be able to develop their immunities and lair powers, something that could make him unstoppable. This is his first quest, so to speak, but he also has another. His other grand quest is to find a way for himself to mate or create progeny that will carry within themselves the same traits that he possesses. In essence, he wants to become a combination of all of the chromatic dragons, and then he wishes to create a new race of dragons that will share on those traits. These are all incredible magical discoveries that Mystra wishes to let unfold. Now, when it comes to breath weapon attacks, Daurgothoth is actually working on his most powerful one yet, for he's attempting to produce a Mordenkainen's Disjunction as a breath weapon while making himself immune to the effect. For those of you who do not know, Mordenkainen's Disjunction is one of the strongest spells in the game, a level 9 spell that essentially disjoins magic from a person or item. Quote, all magical effects and magical items within the radius of the spell, except for those that you carry or touch, are disjoined. That is, spells and spell-like effects are separated from their individual components, ending the effect as a dispel magic spell does. And each permanent magic item must make a successful will save or be turned into a normal item. End quote. This spell can and will turn your awesome magical armors and weapons into mundane versions of themselves.
Dude, so how are you gonna fight this guy if he has that kind of spell? Or like, I don't think it's the kind of spell that anybody can learn. Like, Jesus, how busted would that be? I just imagine a scenario where like a bunch of like hero class guys just get together after figuring out where his lair is with a bunch of magical items. They go in and it all just turns into nothing. That would be such a like, oh shit moment. And it would also probably be the last thing that you think.
Forever. The spell is so strong that it can actually turn off anti-magic field. It is so strong that it can even destroy artifacts, something that is generally considered otherwise almost impossible. Daurgothoth is currently attempting to produce this effect as a breath weapon, which would make it unbelievably dangerous, especially if he could produce it over and over again. Currently, the experiment is not working so well, and so far, he appears to be only able to produce a powerful dispel magic effect as a breath weapon. He, however, does not like to use it much because the experiment is not fully completed. Currently, it seems, whenever he uses this ability, it tends to spin wild magic away from its verges, sometimes doing him more harm than good. As far as other experimentations goes, he has managed to make himself highly resistant to magic and has even achieved immunity to the spells Imprisonment, Power Word Kill, Reverse Gravity, Temporal Stasis, the spell Sync, and Time Stop. Dauragothoth's phylactery, or host as they are called, is rumored to be a black opal of insignificant size, hidden in a huge heap of gems of all types and sizes that nearly fills a cavern that also holds the skeletal bodies of 6 lesser dragons. These skeletal bodies are meant to serve as bodies for the Dracolich in the event that his current body is destroyed. This whole cave, however, is hidden and blocked off from somewhere in the gem-filled main lair. We're not—
Oh my god. So, if I'm getting my facts straight here, like, you could kill him if you destroyed that one specific gem, right? But, like, it's buried, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. And even if you manage to kill his body, he just revives again afterwards anyways.
Not given the full extent of the magical abilities that Dauragothoth possesses, but instead we're given a spell that he created himself and uses constantly in battle. The spell is called Bone Melt. If you do not resist this powerful spell, your bones turn to jelly, causing you to collapse into a helpless amoeba-like slithering blob.
Oh god.
What makes this so dangerous is that even if you succeed in resisting the spell, a part of your body will still suffer the effects, whether it is your arms, legs, or head. This is just an example of how different and unique Dauragothoth's spells are, for he invents his own, and those that already exist, he tweaks and changes.
That's,
quote, the creeping doom is so ambitious that his schemes seem destined to failure. Even Dauragothoth himself is aware that spawning a race of descendants having powers akin to his own could well bring his own eventual doom at their hands. Still, even if he never mates, his continual growth in power is a matter of grave concern for folk all over Faerun, both draconic and human. This Dracolich will stop at nothing, and Mystra seems content to let him build himself into the greatest creature of magic in all of Toro if he can achieve this aim. At the same time, his lonely search for a mate opens him up to attack from wily foes, and if his seizures of magic grow more successful, he will soon have no shortage of those foes. End quote.
Dang. This sounds pretty insane. Like, this isn't even final boss levels of, like, difficulty. This is like, oh, you went down the wrong turn and you ended up in his lair. Rest in peace. End of campaign kind of deal.